وكل سنة وهم طيبين، وكل الاحترام والتقدير بما يقومون به من جهد كبير جدا.
On the Labor Day, we appreciate all the efforts exerted by them for the progress of this country, and I would like to use this opportunity to extend my heartfelt congratulations. And for the past 2 weeks, you have followed up very closely, starting here with the most important issue, which is the Egyptian relations with the rest of the world in the light of the great challenges faced by the entire world. There has been intensified efforts exerted by His Excellency Mr. President Sisi, whether hosting the Hungarian Parliament Speaker and the General Governor of the Commonwealth Australia, because our relations with both countries, whether Hungary, which is a very important state in the European Union, and beyond the cooperation with the European Union, the bilateral relations connecting the two countries is highly significant, and we work to strengthen these relations. Same goes for Australia. The Governor General was here celebrating our 75-year relations, and was a great opportunity to discuss our bilateral ties. The most important here is the African file. His Excellency the President visited Djibouti, and it is an integral state with utmost significance to Egypt due to its geographic locations, the Red Sea as it's the Arab state on the African Horn area. So it is a very significant visit that saw the talks regarding bilateral projects between Egypt and Djibouti in different fields, including electricity, power, transport, logistics, industry, among others. And the upcoming period will witness a shift in our bilateral relations with Djibouti. You have followed up yesterday also. There was a very important visit by President Burhan to Egypt, and given the ongoing crisis in Sudan, there have been talks between President Sisi and President Burhan for the best interest of the Republic of Sudan. And today, in an official visit by the President of Angola and the current President of the African Union, the visit focuses on strengthening the bilateral relations with Angola, and I was delegated by His Excellency the President to visit Uganda to discuss a very important file, which is the situation in our brotherly country, Somalia, and to pave the way for a new mission, for a new United Nations mission to Somalia, which includes in the security part presence of Egyptian troops in Somalia. So the President authorized me to discuss this matter and to make the due arrangements to activate the UN mission and the part pertaining to the Egyptian troops to take place there. If you have followed up closely, you would see the Egyptian efforts in the African file, as Egypt is treating it as a top priority. And here we can stress the Egyptian keenness on the African stability and to strengthen our bilateral relations with all African states, especially in the economic file. There were a meeting between His Excellency President Sisi and the Kuwaiti representative in the Egyptian-Kuwaiti Cooperation Council, and this was after the President's visit to Kuwait, and there were detailed conversations regarding the projects to take place later with Kuwait. And there were talks regarding certain specific projects, and we will see investments from Kuwait in Egypt soon. and the head of the council praised the Egyptian steps taking in this regard, whether to solve the problems that face Kuwaiti investors or the procedures taken by the Egyptian state to improve the investment climate and to encourage foreign direct investments to Egypt. This leads me to discuss the economy. You have followed up closely the very important meeting held by His Excellency the President. I attended, and His Excellency Minister of Finance, Minister of Industry and Minister of Foreign Trade, where we agreed to replace the different fees, the varying fees that used to be imposed by different bodies due to certain legislations, and replacing these fees with a unified fee to facilitate the procedures for the investors. And probably this takes place in the framework of the structural reforms that we are taking. We have talked about the features of this reform scheme, and it was showcased by the Minister of Industry, and we presented this to the President, and he pointed that we shall take fast steps. So we will have next week a meeting with the concerned group, and we will finalize the proposal for the executive measures, and we will present it once again to the President to start activating the procedures. I would like to indicate that we as a government taking very precise steps to improve the investment climate, applying the first pack of tax facilitations, and it was approved by the Parliament, and we started activating it. Also the land allocations for investment purposes, as well as setting a framework for customs and tariffs. The imports program that we have already concluded, and we started dialogue with all the exporting councils. All of these measures we are taking to improve the investment climate. Of course, the Arab Spring meetings, and I will leave it to the ministers to talk about these things, but I will only mention 2 points, and I will leave the rest to the ministers. Of course, the volatility that we see around the world, and of course I will leave the floor to my colleagues to talk about this further. It reflects on the economic growth worldwide, which are being modified negatively. But the Egyptian economy is moving positively, and our expectations were modified by international institutions towards increase and not decline, and this is due to the Egyptian state's efforts taken during the past period. Of course, there were also good news regarding the employment index, unemployment index. You have seen we have very good numbers. We're talking about 6.5 or 6.6 among and among youth we have 14%. All of these numbers stress the right direction the state is going through, and even the World Bank today is talking about the vision for the Egyptian economy growth. We have focused on the industry sector and replacing what we buy from abroad with the local component. There have been 2 important agreements signed in this regard. The first is a strategic coalition between Egypto Pharma and one of the most mega companies in the United States, with the attendance of one of the ministers and the U.S. ambassador. and this is to strengthen the pharmaceuticals industry in Egypt, and we are also gaining the accreditation of the FDA. And this means that the Egyptian pharmaceuticals will have accessibility in the US market. The type of pharmaceuticals to be produced due to this agreement will be very important and will have accessibility in different states around the world. Also, there was an agreement, a venture agreement for two very important projects with a business sector company that is to produce polyester fabrics. The two projects will take place and will work on the polyester production in Egypt to cover the local needs. Also, the economic body for the Suez Canal, we have followed up this issue closely, and there was a meeting with the head of the economic zone. We were talking about the contract to establish a specialized company in the metal cans manufacturing company. Egypt used to export these cans, and through the partnerships taking place, we will reach the level of self-sufficiency. Also, we're signing an agreement with the Chinese Shenfeng mega company to establish in a plant complex with $6.1 million investment. They started the execution already to establish 6 factories, for 9 factories. They started, the first phase will be established by next year, so the industry file is witnessing progress on a daily basis, and we are hopeful that this sector will be in the forefront of the Egyptian economy. I would like to conclude my speech before I leave the floor to Their Excellencies the Ministers. There was a very important visit to the New Delta project, and under the directives of the President, there was a lot of focus placed on this project. So we have seen all entities working very hard to finalize all the works related to this project in the New Delta region. We're talking about 2 million acres or more in this area in particular. I would like to stress that what will be reformed in this phase will be across 5 governorates. We're talking about a new republic here. It is really a new delta for Egypt, and this mega project will be very fruitful for the Egyptian state in the upcoming period. I will stop here and I will leave the floor to my colleagues, the ministries, to give you a brief regarding what happened during the past week. Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister. During the spring and autumn meetings this year were very significant because they come in a time where the entire world is talking about economic policies and a state of uncertainty. It was an opportunity for all delegations, including the IMF and the World Bank, and also the intellect and policy makers from different states around the world, in addition to international organizations. It is a very important gathering. I have a small presentation regarding the expectations of economic growth around the world. The IMF, for the first time, which is the main entity to observe and monitor the U.S. policies and their effect on the world. They have 2 scenarios. The first say that the economic growth will be down by 0.5% and 3% in 2026. This scenario includes the current policies without further escalation. The other scenario says that in the event of any escalations and any more difficult trade policies, the economic growth will decline further by 1.3 in 2025 and 3.6 in 2026. We're talking about economic growth in 2025. These growth rates are way less than before. We had expectations for more than 3% growth rates, and this will be the direct impact of the US policies that we're seeing currently. This might be one of the most important outcomes of our gathering. And also one more point, the uncertainty index in the trade policies that is hitting its highest level at all, which shows the tensions in the markets. Also the tariffs, as we're all aware, that they are reaching very high rates. If we look at the different geographical areas, we can see that different geographical areas witness decline in the growth rates beyond Egypt. If we take the IMF or the World Bank expectations for the Egyptian economy, it has been reviewed for further increase and not decline, and this is witnessed by both institutions, which is very important and was commented upon. And this increase is due to the GDP growth and the positive developments in the reform path and engaging the private sector and the different procedures taken by the president and by the Egyptian state. Also the lowered inflation rates. Another important point that we're talking about, the two institutions, the World Bank with the new presidency for the World Bank president, who assumed his office for more than 1 year, for over 1 year now. He has a renewed vision for the World Bank, and he's focusing on a very important point, which is employment. Employment is a main core idea here, and it comes here for more than one reason, not just for sustainable growth, but also to protect the international stability and to prevent immigration. And it's important when we create jobs in different states. These jobs are not only outsourcing opportunities, but real opportunities inside the states by public-private partnerships with structural reforms to engage the private sector in the employment field. And also the World Bank focused on 5 sectors. What I'm saying is stated in a paper from the Development Committee affiliated with the World Bank, in the agriculture as a trade activity and improving the efficiency of small farmers. Second, tourism and employment in tourism, which is very productive. For each direct tourism job, there are 4 indirect jobs, and the local manufacturing with added values. These are the sectors focused on by the World Bank. If we translated this into the Egyptian case, we are about to finalize a very important phase, compiling all these informations in a very important report. The planning, the industrial development, the foreign direct investments, the labor market and skills, all of these information will be published in our report to be issued soon. So once again, and we are celebrating the Labor Day, the international community is very interested in growth in the middle on the middle run, and we're working with different institutions to push this, to take this forward. And our meetings, in spite of the state of uncertainty, there was a spirit of cooperation between different states, and this was a very important note that was placed, that there is no way to overcome the current challenges without strengthening international cooperation to be productive among different states. Egypt has a great opportunity in this, which was reflected positively on the growth expectations for Egypt. Minister of Finance, thank you for both of your excellencies. I will add a new dimension here on the sidelines of these meetings. There was a very good opportunity to meet with different investors. We had individual and bilateral meetings. We met with around 11 or 12 international investment forums. We met with hundreds of investors. And the financial markets and investors are looking to the Egyptian economy with a much positive look, which is due to two main factors. The first is that all of our financial indices are much better than before, with the testimonies of the working companies or the international indices, including, as mentioned by Her Excellency the Minister, that we are one of the a few states with higher growth expectations. Most states have negative growth expectations, but Egypt is one of the few countries with positive growth expectations. And this is due to the state of uncertainty in the world, but Egypt is in a much better state. The growth rate that is going back for over 4%, and that industry is growing back, the tourism is growing back, and the technology, the ICT sector is still witnessing a lot of progress, more than 50%. We have received praise regarding our 80% private investing percentage. Now the private investors' investments are 60% of the total investments. The unemployment is declining. The transactions, the non-oil exports, the non-oil exports is increasing, and this contributes to the bigger picture to give a positive view, which is happening in a time where the world is witnessing declining indices and a lot of states are suffering. So this gives a positive look to the Egyptian economy, which was very tangible to us, and it gives us optimism, but also it pushes us to continue the reforms. And the Prime Minister today indicated all the structural reforms to improve the Egyptian economy quality, plus the new innovative program to support the Egyptian exports. The second point that I would like to point out is that in our talks with international organizations and not the investors, there was a lot of praise. The IMF, which we held a lot of meetings with, as well as the World Bank, and along with different other institutions, they had this positive impression, and they felt the structural reforms that we are taking are being very productive. We need to multiply our efforts during the upcoming period, but they really appreciated our already existing ongoing efforts. And in our meetings with the IMF, whether on the technical level or on the administrative level, there was a lot of welcome to our procedures taken along the past period, and they listened to our future vision including what has been showcased by the Prime Minister to improve the investment climate, a very positive view about Egypt, which gives us a lot of responsibility to continue this reform march, and we will be able to achieve qualitative shifts during the upcoming period under the directions of the Prime Minister. We are ready to receive questions now.
مساء الخير يا فندم. يعني أنا سؤالي خاص بجهود الحكومة.
My question is regarding the government efforts to employ the economic program regarding the challenges and the developments. You've mentioned more than once that there are ongoing challenges, the volatile economic scene around the world. What are we going to do regarding these challenges, whether the current one or the expected ones? Maybe Her Excellency said that we have a national narrative for the Egyptian economy, and let me tell you, in the same context, we have three scenarios for the Egyptian economy. The first, or the neutral scenario, and the optimistic scenario, and the negative scenario. The three scenarios are related to the ongoing challenges around the world. In the three scenarios, we are taking the steps to encourage foreign direct investment and to push the economy forward. The only variable between the three scenarios, what will happen in the global trade war that we're witnessing. Is it going to escalate, or will we witness a cool down? In each scenario, we have certain directions to go with. Our steps are the same, our targets are the same, but with each certain variable, we have different innovative measures, and this is being privately discussed within the government and the economic group, and based on the variables, we will carry on with the suitable scenario. I would like to reassure you and reassure the Egyptian citizens that we are fully prepared for any of the three scenarios to move with the Egyptian state with the least losses possible. Today the government passed the old rent law to the parliament, and in some cases the tenant, how will be the situation of the tenant? Is there a time frame set by the government? Will the rent be increased or not? Well, let's say that we are under the Constitutional Court ruling that obliged the state to set all the regulations for the rent issue. What has been discussed and the measures taken to amend the law is regarding how to activate the Constitutional Court ruling. And I would like to tell you that this decision was made in the framework of ongoing consultations among relevant ministries, and then it was passed to the parliament to start the discussion. So the proposals provided by the government to the parliament depend on a start price for the rentals, whether in villages or cities, and also with consideration to the social dimension for 5 years, and after the 5 years there will be gradual increases. This is the transitional phase that we're talking about, and at the same time there are regulations and controls to consider the different social statuses and situations and circumstances for different segments of people, and this will be subject to the parliament discussion. We are fully aware that this is of great interest to the public opinion. And as you're aware, these are two parties. The owners say that we were the parties that suffered the most for tens of years since the establishment of these laws, and they have been working for 60 years. And they have been saying that these are unfair conditions, but in the same time we are aware that some of the tenants in a very tough financial position, and they will not be able to head to a free market. So what are the measures to be taken to ensure balance? This is what we're working on, and this is what we're going to witness the discussion of inside the Parliament, and we are open to any kinds of amendments, and we are taking both parties into consideration. All that we want is to reach a balanced framework to serve both parties. There have been multiple visits by the investors in the GCC, last of which Kuwait, and before that was Saudi Arabia. In the last conference, you said that the government is proposing different investment projects to be presented to the Kuwaiti investors. However, the Kuwaiti investment rates is related to these projects. Did you make the relevant assessments and evaluations, or is it the Kuwaiti party will use their deposits to finance and fund the projects, as what happened with different states? And I think this will be kind of easement on the foreign currency reserve. We have the two cases, whether to for new investments from the Kuwaiti private sectors, or to turn the deposits into investments. And this is based on the President's visit to Kuwait. The Finance Minister and the Investment Minister will visit Kuwait tomorrow to discuss this with the Kuwaiti government. They will be in Kuwait tomorrow to discuss the executive measures to this decision. I have a two-part question. Today we have seen the Parliament praising the government for the criminal code. Do you have any other codes or drafts you're working on before the Parliament term is over? Also renewing the term for buildings, what is the objective? You have extended the period for 5 months. Was the last period not feasible? There are a lot of drafts that we have presented to the Parliament, and according to the timetable for the Parliament, may God help them during their legislative chapter, they are working on all of the legislations. But the greater part is related to the economic side and facilitating investment procedures and tax and customs reforms, and the Finance Minister is aware of that. And so we are very concerned with the structural reform laws, especially the unit that will manage the state assets and the framework of activating the state ownership documents. And I was discussing this with the planning minister. So all the piles of interest to the economic, to the Egyptian economy is a top priority in coordination with the Parliament. We are hopeful that with the very busy timetable, we will be able to discuss these laws. Let me talk about what you've said, the reconciliation regarding the buildings, the violations. It is a huge file, and we keep receiving requests to legalize different statuses, and based on this, there was a queue for the Prime Minister to renew the law for 6 months. We found that it is suitable and to serve the citizen first, to finalize this issue, that this dated issues, to give an extra 6 months on, after the demand of the Social Solidarity Minister. After the unified ID number for real estate, how will this contribute to easing the licensing process? This is not less important than the ID number for each citizen. Our problem in Egypt is the real estate registration, and everyone is always complaining, including the investors, whether the foreign or the local investors. They say that you have a problem in this regard. If we want to buy any assets, we're always faced by the non-registration and the unregistered properties from the state registry. So the idea to have a real estate identification number is very important. So each property has an identification number. This is very simply will be related to a completely automated system. If I wanted to deal with a certain asset or certain property, we do not have to go to the court and register the property and go through the whole process. This law is very significant because in one step, this is a very important national project. This will facilitate a lot of hindrances in the registration process, and this will protect the property and the real estate properties for the citizens. This will solve a lot of problems, especially in old areas. The problem of the unclear property. We're usually surprised that some properties are not really known for their owners. The owner is not always clear, and this law will create a shift in this regard.
موسم توريد القمح بدأ 25 ابريل الماضي. كنا عايزين
The wheat importing season started. I would like to know your assessment for the season so far and what will be exported.
كنا عايزين نعرف من حضرتك
And on the Labor Day, we would like to know what are the developments on the closed factories. I think the finance minister can talk about the wheat, but what I want to talk about is the leap that will start in May and mid-June. What we are seeing now is the early harvest, which is the second half of April. We can see this in Upper Egypt and the high temperature areas. The wheat grows faster than the delta, but the indicators definitely are very positive, and our expectations, we are hopeful. We are hopeful to exceed the 4 million tons. The averages did not exceed the 3.5 earlier, but this year we are hoping to exceed 4 millions. First, I would like to reassure you that the system is going very regularly, and we have over $6 billion since the beginning of the season. We are starting coordinating, and if we have this kind of money, it means that we have a very good import volume. So it's going really well as stated by the Prime Minister, but the real increase is usually in June. The first indicators are very good, and regarding the comprehensive integrated system, we have very positive indicators. We have the funding without delay or problems.
بالنسبة للشق الثاني في موضوع السؤال
For the second part regarding the closed factories, and I think the Vice Prime Minister and the Minister of Industry,
الوزارية الصناعية والتنمية الصناعية
working with the
ويمكن أنا عايز بس
Industrial Development Group, are working on this file, but I would like to actually state here that our problem during the past period, maybe the economic reforms we have took in March,
أكثر قطاع متأثر
the most affected sector was the industry sector, and it used to grow negatively.
منتهى الوضوح. كان
Let's
هذا
talk about this very clearly. It used to grow negatively, and we saw all state sectors growing positively, except for this one always growing negatively, and they take the state indicators down.
عملية الإصلاح الاقتصادي
And since the beginning of the economic reform that took place in March, liberating the exchange rate, this sector is starting to grow back, and this was evident after the first quarter. From March 2024 to June 2024, the recovery phase started, and so far, till this moment, the sector is back growing positively once again, and we still have a lot of work to do. We are working for these factories to operate once again, and now they are in the construction phases. We have, according to our estimates, we have 2 years to find real productivity for our efforts. As you are saying, we used to go to the closed factories and reoperate them once again, and the ministers group are working on this to take direct decisions to be accredited by the Prime Minister Council. This week saw the decline of the prices of some commodities, including chicken and meat, against all expectations. During the upcoming period, will we witness further declines, and what is the government plan to provide commodities to the citizens? We are aware that there are government outlets to sell the commodities at lower prices. Of course, we're following up closely on this, and the basis for this is the abundance in productivity. Productivity abundance increases competitiveness and will, in this, contribute positively to lowering prices, especially in the food supplies, because they do not have very long expiration dates, so it's in the best interest of the manufacturers to finish their products as soon as possible. And as long as the competitiveness is more, this will encourage these entities to lower the prices or at least make them constant. We are following up closely on a daily basis the availability of production and the supplies needed for production to ensure this. And during the next week we will have a meeting with the price committees. Last question. The government will present the parliament with 2 new draft laws before the end of the parliament term. When will they be presented? Of course, let's talk about the sports law first. The sports law, actually, as to the public opinion, we are reviewing all the points raised, and we are setting the due amendments. We're taking every opinion under consideration, and before I come here to talk to you, the Youth and Sports Minister was talking to me and briefing me regarding the law, and what we're doing is that we take all the opinions under consideration to come up with the best draft, and we will try to submit it to the Parliament by the end of this week. The elections law, in coordination with the Parliament and all the state councils, we will see what is required for the next elections, because if there is a need to amend any articles, we will be taking steps in this regard. I would like to thank you very much, and I would like to congratulate you for the Labor Day. Thank you very much.